No one ever noticed Emily Carter when she slipped into the glass tower every morning. She liked it that way. At 22, with a soft voice and shoulders that instinctively curved inward, Emily had mastered the art of becoming invisible. She walked fast, eyes lowered, badge swinging lightly against her navy blouse as if apologizing for existing. To most people at Harrington and Company, she was just the intern, the quiet one who fetched coffee, organized files, and smiled politely when spoken to. No one knew how loud her thoughts were, how much kindness she carried, or how deeply she believed that small acts mattered. Emily's first week as an intern had been overwhelming. The building itself felt intimidating. Polished marble floors, walls of glass, and conversations that sounded like a foreign language filled with numbers, deadlines, and power. She had almost quit on the second day, convinced she didn't belong. But then she remembered her younger brother Lucas, and how he used to squeeze her hand before every school presentation. "You can do this," his eyes would say. Lucas had been deaf since birth. Growing up, Emily had learned sign language not as a skill, but as love. It was how she and Lucas laughed, argued, shared secrets, and healed after hard days. It was her first language of the heart. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the lobby buzzed with activity. Executives rushed past with umbrellas dripping water onto the marble floor. Phones rang. Security guards stood alert near the reception desk. Emily was sorting mail when she noticed an older man standing near the entrance, soaked from the rain and visibly distressed. He held a folder close to his chest and looked around, confused, his eyes darting from face to face. The receptionist spoke to him slowly, exaggerating her words, but the man's expression only grew more strained. Emily felt a familiar tightening in her chest. She recognized that look, the frustration of not being understood, the exhaustion of constantly having to explain your silence. Before she could second-guess herself, she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said softly to the receptionist. Then she turned to the man and raised her hands. "Hello, can I help you?" She signed. The man's face changed instantly. His shoulders dropped, his eyes widened, and then, unexpectedly, filled with tears. He signed back, his movement shaky at first. "You know sign language?" Emily nodded, smiling gently. "Yes. What do you need?" The man explained that his name was Mr. Harold Bennett. He had an appointment to discuss a proposal he'd been trying to get reviewed for months. He was deaf and had often been turned away or told to come back with an interpreter. Today, his interpreter had canceled at the last minute, and he'd almost gone home, defeated. Emily listened carefully, nodding, asking questions, her hands moving with practiced grace. She reassured him, signed that she would help him check in, and walked him to a quiet seating area. She explained his situation to the receptionist and then to security, advocating for him with a calm confidence that surprised even herself. What Emily didn't know was that from the second-floor balcony above the lobby, someone had stopped walking. Richard Harrington, the CEO and founder of Harrington and Company, had been heading to a board meeting when he noticed the small group forming below. At first, he was irritated. Anything that delayed his schedule usually was. But then he saw the intern signing. He slowed, then stopped entirely. Richard hadn't seen sign language in years, not since his late wife, Eleanor. She had been an interpreter before illness took her voice and eventually her life. Watching Emily's hands move so fluidly stirred something deep and uncomfortable in him, a mix of memory, regret, and longing. He leaned against the glass railing, unnoticed, and watched. Below, Emily finished signing and offered Mr. Bennett a cup of water. She sat beside him, not across from him, the way she had. Learned made conversations feel less formal, more human. She asked about his proposal, his journey, his life. He told her about starting his small nonprofit to help deaf children in underserved communities learn vocational skills. He told her how many doors had closed simply because communication was inconvenient. Emily listened, really listened. When a junior manager finally came down, clearly annoyed, Emily stood and explained, firmly but respectfully, that Mr. Bennett had an appointment and deserved to be heard. Something in her tone made the manager pause. He glanced at Mr. Bennett, then back at Emily, and reluctantly agreed to take him upstairs. As they walked toward the elevators, Mr. Bennett stopped and turned to Emily. "Thank you," he signed. "You made me feel seen today." Emily felt her throat tighten. "You matter," she signed back. "Good luck." The elevator doors closed and Emily returned to her desk, heart pounding. She assumed that was the end of it, a small kindness in a long day. She didn't see Richard Harrington step into the same elevator moments later, his mind racing. The board meeting that followed was tense. Charts were presented, profits discussed, strategies debated. But Richard couldn't focus. All he could see were Emily's hands, her patience, the way she had treated Mr. Bennett, not as a problem to be solved, but as a person to be respected. Halfway through the meeting, Richard raised his hand. "I want to add something to the agenda," he said. The room fell silent. "There is a proposal being presented today by a man named Harold Bennett," Richard continued. "I want us to hear it fully, and I want us to discuss how this company can support initiatives that prioritize accessibility, not as charity, but as responsibility." Some executives shifted uncomfortably. Others looked surprised. But no one argued. Later that evening, Emily was packing her bag when she received an email requesting her presence in the executive conference room. Her stomach dropped. She replayed the day in her mind, wondering if she had overstepped. Interns weren't supposed to intervene. Interns weren't supposed to be noticed. When she entered the conference room, she saw Richard Harrington standing by the window. Mr. Bennett was there too, smiling broadly when he saw her. Emily froze. "Emily Carter," Richard said, turning around. His voice was calm, warm. "Do you know why you're here?" She shook her head, barely able to speak. "I watched you today," he said. "I watched you choose compassion when it wasn't required. I watched you use a skill that wasn't in your job description to make someone feel human." He paused, emotion flickering across his face. "My wife used to say that a company's true value isn't measured in profit margins, but in moments like that," he continued. "Today, you reminded me of that." Richard turned to Mr. Bennett. "We're going to fund your program. And more than that, we're going to partner with you to build an accessibility initiative within this company." Mr. Bennett's hands trembled as he signed his gratitude, tears streaming freely now. Richard then looked back at Emily. "As for you," he said, smiling, "I'd like to offer you a permanent position. And if you're willing, I'd like you to help us become better, not just more successful." Emily felt the room spin. Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, words failing her entirely. That night, as she walked out of the building, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, and for the first time since she'd started the internship, Emily walked slowly, her head held a little higher. She thought of Lucas, of Eleanor, of Mr. Bennett, and of all the invisible people still waiting to be seen. She realized then that kindness didn't need a title, confidence didn't need volume, and the smallest voices could create the biggest change. And somewhere above, in offices and boardrooms and quiet hearts, the world was listening, whether we knew it or not.